Last time we talked about lower walk faithfully with God. And that is where lower find favor in front of God. So today we would like to continue to understand more about this particular lower so much. So first of all, we have a flood, and we also understand the bird. And from the bird, we find the favor. From the favor, we find the righteousness. From the righteousness, as we stated last time, it has two parts: blameless and also and faith. So the conclusion last time from this text, this is the word that we would like to go deeper into. And here today, this is the key topic of today is let's discuss what is faith. Well, simply saying that like last time, if we have a good reception from God, which is we use the radio as the analogy, that you're receiving the message and you follow it, then God has no reason to try to harm us, but we have to follow His direction and instruction to avoid those situations so that we can be safe. So that is essentially the basic understanding of the faith. Today, we're going to take a deeper look into the concept of this. Okay, what does it really mean? All right. So recently, we have recent news that we have some teenagers have a trip to Mexico, and half of them, when they come back, being infected with the virus. So many people may think that how would that happen, because there's a lot the news and the government advise the people reduce our travel and not to taking care of ourselves, particularly our hygiene. So there's a quite risky at this point in time to travel like that. Now, I'm not fully understand what the actual situation is. I only know part of the news. So I'm not saying that this is the real story, but we just take that situation from my understanding to illustrate this point. All right. I'm not judging these people because, as I said last time, I'm not among them, and also not in his time. So I really don't know why the people will make such a choice. But I just use based on the simple example and to illustrate what the faith might be. Okay, here, just think about that. Essentially, using the same analogy we use in the garden. So, if the garden owner announces the message that something goes wrong, all right, maybe they have the weather report that they know the storm is coming, so all the ride will be stopped, so that to protect you from being harmed. Okay, at least getting wet, right? But if you don't heard about the announcement and you just standing there and waiting, well, bad luck, all right? But even though the other type is that if you get the message, some will follow, but some still not follow, all right? So essentially, we have three groups of people. Okay, I'm using these three figureheads to represent. One is unheard. These two are heard. One who follow and one don't follow. Okay, there's the three types. So, well, if you didn't hear about the news, well, bad luck. Then you will continue whatever you thought is the right things to do. And if you heard the news and decided to follow, okay, you are the you are this people. If you heard it, but you decide not to follow, how does it relate to the faith? All right. So the faith by itself is a big concept by itself, and we cannot just say, oh, after you heard it, you believe and you follow. If you don't believe, you don't follow. Actually, there's a lot more to talk about faith. All right. Today, this is the exactly the topic we would like to dive into, is talk about this faith. Many people will use a word called belief to use it to represent faith. If you have faith, you should believe. If you don't have faith, you don't believe. So belief and faith is not exactly equal. All right. So let's go deep down into understand what faith really is. What's supporting someone who believes certain thing. All right. So any belief must have a support of the fact. It must have the fact to support the certain people who to have a certain belief, and also you believe something, right? So you believe a certain thing is a fact. So that is the first part of the belief. So you may wonder, if I tell you the fact, why you don't believe? So obviously it is not. When you present the fact, the people will automatically believe. All right. But what constitutes the belief further, even though I tell you the fact? Now, thing about it is that if I come, suddenly to you and I'm no one to you, but I tell you certain thing, and obviously it's a fact, but, well, you can choose not to believe. Because, well, first of all, how do I know this is the fact, right? Number one, even though it is a fact, well, I'm not quite sure, your motivation and your background, why are you telling me this, right? So actually the belief is beyond facts. What constitutes someone to believe on the certain things is required of another thing, so-called the relationship. The relationship is also very important in the how we believe. All right. So first of all, you need to have the fact, and second, I need to know you. I need to know who are you, and why why I need to listen to you. All right. So in the case like those teenagers, well, they probably get a fact, but well, now it really depends. Where they heard about the news, for example, from the newspaper, could be from the news channel, could be from the government announcement. If you don't establish a relationship with the government, with the channel, or with the newspaper, if you doesn't have the relationship with them, well, I may not choose to believe, right? Even though you put the fact on the paper or announcement. So what constitutes to our belief is that besides you need to put the fact, okay, if you put the fake news, I definitely will not believe you, right? But even though you put the fact, but I also need to have the relationship with you, all right? Otherwise, there's no base to believe, all right? Okay? So let's go down a little bit more, all right? So in the relationship-wise, there's also 2 stages. The first stages is interaction. Okay, interaction. You got to be knowing someone, interact with someone in order to establish this relationship. You cannot just say, oh, because I'm the government, you need to listen to me. Well, yeah, but it is not all about this. If you just want the people know the fact, well, they can just put it in the head. Remember it, someone tell me this, but it doesn't mean it will change someone else's behavior. Even though you tell them the fact, well, if you don't have a relationship with someone, they may choose not to follow. So it's obviously there must be some interaction between the one who talk, the one who listen. And this has to have the relationship. So the first, they have to have the interaction. So you talk to him, he responds, and things like that to establish this relationship. Here I draw like this. Now go back into the Bible. Noah walked faithfully with God. Meaning is he interact with God the whole life. So it is not one-sided. Oh, because I'm God, I create you, you need to listen to me. Oh, no. Our God doesn't work that way, okay? He is not authoritarian that, oh, okay, because I'm God, I'm king, okay, you need to listen to me, okay, you become my slave. This is not the Bible model. The Bible model is not like that. The Bible model is, maybe you should know, okay, is a father and son. So, well, it's still, the father's also the authority figure, but at the same time, they have to interact, all right? Because otherwise, without this communication, this can hardly achieve to this level, okay, to believe. So you start from small, okay? Well, when you're a kid, okay, when you follow your father, the kid doesn't quite understand what the father does. Well, he may, just follow at the beginning, but after the son, okay, understand a little bit more about why the father do the things he does, and also why the father advised the kid to do certain things. Once he understands the reason, well, then they start to establish the relationship. And so when the father put the fact in front of the son, well, he may listen, okay? Well, some smarter, some dumber, but essentially they have at least the interaction. So this is the way to establish the relationship. Now, the last step in the relationship is this. Is the trust. I don't know how to draw. Essentially, they go hand in hand together. Essentially, whatever the father does, the son follows. Whatever the son chooses to do, also the father follows. Okay? As long as the son had the father's heart, then they will work perfectly together. This is exactly what's happening in Noah. All right? He walked faithfully with God. So this constituent of this belief, all right, is that you must have the fact, you must have the interaction, and then you must have a trust. So I'm pretty sure that when Noah, when he was born, he would not have a trusting relationship with God when he was born. He must go through the similar step like us, understand the fact, and interact with the Creator. It's somewhat that, the radio doesn't work so well, but at least you can try. And then, oh, he didn't really fool me. Actually, he is the trusting father. So this whole thing combined together constitute faith. So if you're looking at the faith is like an orange, and this is the constituent inside an orange to constitute faith. Obviously, it's not just a simple fact that, oh, I just believe in God. Besides, the Bible is the fact that put in front of us. At the beginning, we try to learn how to work with God. And also, at the end, we have a trusting relationship with God so that we walk faithfully with God. He probably will walk with God initially, may not have the faithfully, because sometimes he follows, sometimes he don't. But after 500 years, okay, all this time, all this challenge, he practiced this perfectly, all right? Received the message perfectly and follow him perfectly. And also, due to what he followed, that he got a extraordinary outcome. It's really the floods come. I didn't really waste all my time build the ark, okay? Who cares, At that time, the sky still not raining. Actually it will rain. In fact, I'm not sure whether I explained that, but before the Noah's time, there's no rain. No one know actually the rain would come like this. Quite a surprise to the people at that time. So that's why the people choose not to believe the ark. First of all, you may have heard of, there's an ark? Really? Oh, I don't know. Now, this is people number one. But people number two is, what? You give me an ark? What's for? So they don't follow. But someone who actually interact with God more, then maybe make some sense. Let's try and see whether it makes sense, right? Now, these people will get saved. So that's where the faith comes from. So what we encourage, whoever listen to this is, faith is not just purely belief in a certain fact. You believe God exists, it doesn't mean you have faith. The faith really means that you really interact with your Creator to establish the relationship and develop up to the point of the trusting relationship. And this whole thing together, supporting what the faith really is and support what you believe. If your belief is purely just a relationship without a fact, that's okay, but it will not help much by, when you explain your relationship with God with someone without the fact, it's a hard time to explain, what's going on. If you have fact but without the relationship, you just blindly follow without knowing, really? What's the motivation behind why God asked you to do that, right? So the whole faith, to have a healthy faith, for those people who say that I have faith in God or have a faith in certain things, it must have all this constituent, and to support that relationship. That ultimately is the trusting relationship that you and God work like this. Remember at the very beginning I say God and us is supposed to be the buddy, right? And the God is actually living in our heart. So essentially we work perfectly with him, but because we lost, God in our heart and become we call it the dead man, all right? You have the body but without the soul. Maybe you have a soul but you don't have the God spirit, all right? What we need is that we need to be born again to accept the God back into our life. This process is called born again. So once we establish this connection, then now we try to follow. Well, you probably would not be perfectly follow, okay? But for Noah, his life is long. He has 700 or 900 years long. He definitely practiced this a lot. But it doesn't take that long to establish this relationship. only in the first few years that you start to understand, oh, this is how I receive the message. Then now you follow him, and then you find that he is trustworthy, and then now you become a trusting relationship for life. And this is faith. Fact-based and interaction-based, and also the life-based, because you're going to work with him like a buddy forever. All right. So this is the key point behind why Noah find favor in God's eye, and so that he got the bud, which is the exit to the disasters, all right, the flood. And I hope that today you can start to learn how to establish this faith with God. So far, our ministry is that to make sure that we give you all enough fact to follow, and then go into the second level, that how we interact with the Creator, and then to establish the trusting relationship with God for life. All right. See you next time.